The laughter came first, cold, sharp, echoing across every channel in the system. "Humans," the alien voice drawled, "you move like drifting ice, slow, fragile, breakable."
Oh, man.
A chorus of alien voices followed, each one mocking, each one certain that humanity was nothing but a cosmic joke. But somewhere in the darkness, something was watching them, something they could not see. This was the moment they would never forget, the moment humanity had been waiting for. Alien fleet floated in perfect formation, a wall of glittering warships stretching from one edge of the starfield to the other. They had arrived early for what they called a diplomatic exercise. The truth was far less polite. It was a public humiliation. A show to remind Earth who ruled the stars. In the open, under the pale light of the twin suns, humanity's fleet looked pitiful. 6 aging destroyers, a handful of retrofitted freighters, and one weary carrier with hull plates patched in mismatched colors. Compared to the alien fleet, it was like a row of fishing boats facing an armada of battleships. The alien commander, Admiral Zorath of the Triarch Dominion, sat in his crystal throne aboard the Sovereign's Pride. His ship's bridge was bathed in soft blue light, the air scented with expensive perfume extracted from rare sea beasts of his homeworld. He sipped from a silver cup as his officers broadcast humanity's slow maneuvers to the galaxy-wide feed. "Pathetic," as one of his captains said, adjusting a holomap that displayed Earth's vessels moving like sluggish dots. "Their weapon ranges are laughable. Their shield generators are museum relics. They do not even attempt to hide their movements." Zorath smiled. "Why hide, when you cannot escape?" Far away, or so it seemed. A very different bridge sat silent in the dark. Commander Rhea Kane leaned forward in her chair, elbows on her knees, eyes locked on the alien fleet's formation. Her crew waited for her word. They were aboard the Erebus, a ship no alien had ever seen. A ship no alien believed could exist. "Report," Kane said quietly. "Stealth field is stable," Lieutenant Miles replied, his fingers dancing over the sensor controls. "Their scanners sweep right through us. No reflection. It's like we're a ghost." A low murmur ran through the crew. They'd trained for years for this moment. Buried in secrecy so deep that even most of Earth's military didn't know Erebus existed. Kane's lips curved into a faint smile. She didn't look at her crew. She kept her eyes on the alien flagship. "They think we're not here," she said softly. "Let's keep it that way. For now." Out in the void, the exercise continued. Alien ships fired practice volleys, not at human vessels directly, but near enough to make the threat obvious. One blast passed within 3 kilometers of the old carrier, UN's Resolute, making its shields flare weakly. The alien fleet's channels were left open intentionally, so every human could hear their laughter. Look at them scatter. Primitive instincts, barely worthy of space travel. Every insult was another needle. The crews of the human ships kept their faces neutral, but their hands clenched white around controls. Kane's crew listened in silence. The air aboard Erebus was thick with the kind of stillness that could snap at any moment. The political stakes were no less dangerous than the fleet arrayed before them. For decades, the Triarch Dominion had maintained a treaty with Earth 1, carefully written to keep humanity contained in the outer fringe systems. No weapons above a certain yield. No faster-than-light jumps past the treaty borders. No cloaking technology of any kind. And according to alien intelligence, humanity had obeyed. In reality, they had not. While the Dominion spies reported that Earth was still a century away from viable stealth drives, the Erebus had been taking shape deep beneath the frozen surface of Titan, hidden in vast underground bays shielded from every scan. Its hull was a lattice of exotic alloys. Its weapons were decades ahead of anything the aliens suspected. Its stealth field, a distortion of light, heat, and gravity, was so perfect that even the nearest sensor array would register. Nothing more than empty space. Only a handful of humans even knew it existed. And now, Kane commanded it. On the alien flagship, Zorath began the performance's final act. He stood, his silver robes shimmering, and addressed the fleet and every tuned-in viewer in the galaxy. citizens of the Dominion, friends and allies across the stars, behold the forces of Earth. His hand gestured toward the hollow image of the mismatched human ships. They are weak, they are outdated, they are irrelevant. Laughter filled the broadcast. Let this day be a reminder, Zorath continued, that the Dominion stands unchallenged. At no primitive may he stopped mid-sentence, frowning. On Erebus, Kane smiled. Her voice was calm, almost casual. Lieutenant, how's our field? Solid, ma'am. Not a flicker. Kane nodded. She leaned back in her chair, eyes still on the alien flagship. The moment of truth hadn't come yet, but it was close. She could feel it. She could feel them still laughing. Still certain that humanity was nothing but background noise in the great story of the galaxy. And when the moment came, when the truth finally unfolded, that laughter would die in their throats, Captain. Miles's voice was low, most reverent. They still can't see us. Kane's smile widened. Good, she said. Let's see how long we can keep it that way. The hum of the stealth generators filled the silence. The Erebus drifted in the black, invisible, and waiting. As the galaxy's most powerful fleet mocked the one force that could destroy them without warning. That was the day the game began. It was only the beginning. They said humans couldn't build it. They said the physics was impossible. They said cloaking belonged only to the ancient empires of the galaxy. They were wrong. Long before the laughter in the void, before the alien fleet gathered to humiliate Earth, there was a hidden place beneath the frozen crust of Titan. From orbit, it looked empty, just an endless sheet of cracked ice under the cold light of Saturn. But buried deep below, shielded by a labyrinth of ice tunnels and heavy alloy blast doors, something vast was taking shape. The construction was not on any public record. Even the outer system patrol ships didn't know the bay existed. Only a few thousand people on the entire planet of Earth knew the truth, and each one had sworn a lifetime oath of silence. It started 15 years earlier. Back then, humanity's space program had been modest. A few colony ships to Mars, and the belt, some mining outposts. Military patrols with small, slow vessels. And always above them, the shadow of the Triarch Dominion, the alien empire that had claimed Earth sectored centuries before humanity even knew what was out. There, the Dominion gave Earth freedom within strict borders, and smiled as if it were generosity. In reality, those borders were a cage. No jump drives beyond certain points. No weapons stronger than their limits allowed. No stealth technology. And yet, in the hidden offices of the United Earth Defense Directorate, the idea was born. The meeting was small. Just for people in a secure chamber under New Geneva. This will break the treaty, one of them said. His voice trembled. Yes, replied Admiral Pierce. And when it's done, they will never cage us again. On the table, a holomodel spun slowly, a sleek, black warship with no visible engines, no windows, nothing to give away its shape. Stealth? Someone asked. Pierce's eyes hardened. Better than stealth, invisibility. It took years. And billions in secret funding routed through civilian projects. Mining rigs on Titan drilled ice and rock, officially for fuel extraction. In truth, they carved out shipyards. Freighters brought in refined alloys, labeled as habitat materials for research stations. Engineers vanished from their public. Jobs reappearing in deep cryosleep pods on Titan's hidden base, piece by piece. The ship was born. Its frame was forged from graphene titanium weave, lighter than air and water. Its skin was layered with adaptive light-bending plates, each one able to scatter photons and heat signatures in patterns that made the ship disappear from every spectrum of light. The drive was a hybrid part human fusion tech, part stolen. Alien schematics smuggled from the Orion border skirmishes. The stealth field itself was something else entirely. It was an accident. The scientists had been working on gravitational lensing for deep space telescopes, a way to bend space to magnify distant stars. But a miscalculation caused a full ship-scale field collapse. And The vessel inside vanished from every instrument. When the test team realized what they had, they sealed the lab and told the directorate. Now, Erebus could bend light, bend heat, bend even the pull of gravity around itself. Becoming a hole in space where nothing registered, Commander, Rhea Kane had been chosen for one reason. She was patient. She had commanded slow convoys through pirate territory without losing a single ship. She could wait. She could stalk. Could kill when the moment was right. Kane had been brought to Titan under the cover of a routine inspection. When she saw Erebus for the first time, hanging in the cavernous dock, her breath caught. It didn't look like a ship. It looked like a shadow given shape. Now, years later, she sat in its captain's chair, floating invisibly just 2,000 kilometers. From the alien flagship, the alien fleet still mocked humanity over open channels. They had no idea that the most advanced warship humanity had ever built was right there, close enough to see the glow of their engine vents. On the Erebus bridge, the crew watched the alien formations drift on their holoscreens. The detail was so clear they could see small craft buzzing around the larger ships like insects. "They still think we're centuries behind," Miles said. Quietly. "They're not wrong," replied Kane. "About most of our ships." Her tone shifted colder. She thought back to the final day of training on Titan. The instructors had shown them the simulation's alien sensor sweeps, thermal scans, gravimetric maps, nothing. Erebus was a ghost. In one test, an alien warship had flown within 500 meters of the hull without triggering a single alert. The trainees had laughed then. Admiral Pierce had stopped them with a single sentence. "Never underestimate them," he said. "One day, they will come looking for what they cannot see." Now, that day felt closer. The alien fleet shifted into new formations. The practice volleys were over. The Dominion ships began slow arcs that brought them nearer to the human vessels. And nearer to Erebus. Miles glanced at Kane. "If they get too close, they won't," Kane said. "How can you be sure?" She smiled faintly. "Because right now, we are not in their story. And they're too proud to imagine anyone could write a new chapter without their permission." Of excitement ran through the bridge crew. The Erebus wasn't here to fight, not yet. She was here to watch. To measure. To see the gaps in the Dominion's armor, but Kane knew this was more than reconnaissance. This was a test. To see if the Erebus truly lived up to its legend. On the Sovereign's pride, Admiral Zoreth leaned back in his throne. His long fingers tapped the armrest. "Bring me the human fleet's sensor records," he ordered an aide, hurried to obey. Projecting the scan results in the air between them, Zorath's eyes swept over them lazily, then narrowed. "Run that again," he said. The aide blinked. "Admiral, that sector there?" Zorath pointed. "Empty space. Odd, but too empty." On Erebus, Miles stiffened. "Captain, they're running enhanced scans." Kane's voice was calm. "They won't see us." Hesitated. "But if they do, then we stop being a ghost," she said. "Start being a nightmare." The alien's scans swept past and moved on. Zorath frowned, leaning back once more. "Nothing," the aide said. For a moment, Zorath almost believed it. Almost on the bridge of Erebus, the hum of the stealth generators was the only sound. Kane stood slowly, walking to the front viewport, even though it showed nothing but distortion. From the stealth field, she placed her hand against the cool metal and spoke softly. More to herself than anyone else. "They think we can't hide from them, but we've been hiding right here all along." The crew exchanged glances. They all knew what came next. They all knew the joke was almost over. When the time came, when the Erebus finally revealed herself, the galaxy would see that the ship they said could never exist was real, and it was. Already too late. They never saw it coming. Not the flash, not the sound. Not even the ship that fired it. The alien fleet was moving into the final stage of their exercise. It was no longer just mock fire near the human ships. Now, their shots were creeping closer. On the Sovereign's pride, Admiral Zoreth leaned over the tactical display, watching the pathetic human formation react. The destroyers and carriers shifted, trying to hold a defensive line. The retrofitted freighters moved slower, like wounded prey falling behind. Zorath sipped from his silver cup and spoke into the open channel, voice dripping with amusement. Humans, we admire your courage, but courage without strength is just waiting to die. The laughter that followed wasn't just on his ship. It came from dozens of alien bridges across the fleet. It filled every human ear, aboard Erebus. The laughter was just background noise. Commander Rhea Kane stood with her arms folded, staring at the alien flagship on the holodisplay. The targeting data scrolled silently down the side of the screen, invisible to anyone but her crew. Captain Miles said quietly, "Their focus is on the carrier. The Resolute's shields won't hold if they keep closing in." Kane didn't answer right away. She tapped the edge of the display, zooming in on a smaller alien cruiser drifting slightly off formation. It wasn't damaged. It was just lazy, drifting without perfect alignment. A gap in the wall. "Load railgun." "Low yield," Kane ordered. Her crew froze for a heartbeat. "Low yield?" Miles asked. "We could. This isn't about killing them," Kane cut in. "It's about making them think." The railgun tech swallowed hard, hands flying over controls. "Shot loaded. Magnetic seals tight. Target." Miles asked. Kane's voice was calm. "That cruiser port side, midsection. No shields up. They think they're safe." In the alien fleet, the cruiser's crew was relaxed.
Ow.
Some officers had taken off their helmets. One young gunner was leaning back in his chair, watching the human ships on his screen. Then, without warning, the hull screamed. A metallic thunder rolled through the cruiser as the railgun slug punched straight through the midsection, tearing a perfect smoking hole from one side to the other. No explosion, no blinding light, just devastating silence. After the impact, the alarms blared too late. The crew staggered, shouting, scrambling to understand what had happened. On Erebus, the shot was over in less than 2 seconds. The railgun coil hummed as it cooled, the slug already half a kilometer past the target. No one on the alien side saw where it came from. "They're scrambling," Miles said, grinning. The alien fleet shifted instantly. Warships wheeled in formation, scanning, pinging, searching for a threat, but their sensors found nothing. On the Sovereign's Pride, Zorath's expression turned from amusement to cold calculation. "What was that?" he demanded. "Unknown, Admiral," the sensor chief replied. "No visible attacker, no energy signature, just impact." Dorth's voice dropped into a growl. "Nothing comes from nothing. Find it." The alien search began. Wide angle, sweeps, thermal scans, gravitational mapping. They even fired test shots into empty sectors of space, hoping to hit something by accident. But Erebus drifted quietly in the dark. Invisible? Kane's voice broke the silence on her own bridge. "Stand. Down railgun. Let them chase ghosts." The crew obeyed, though the tension in the air didn't fade. This was dangerous. Poking at the Dominion's pride was like sticking a blade into a predator's side. The alien commanders started arguing over the coms. Some believed it was human sabotage from inside their own fleet. Others insisted it was a misfire from another Dominion ship. A few whispered that maybe, just maybe, humanity had something they didn't understand. Zorath silenced them with a single word. "Enough." His gaze drifted toward the human fleet still holding formation in the distance. "Lock weapons on that freighter," he ordered. The Chosen ship was the UN's hauler's pride and unarmed. Cargo vessel that had been drafted into the exercise as a supply ship. On its bridge, Captain Enoch stared in horror as targeting warnings flared across his console. There, aiming at us. His crew scrambled to send distress calls, but the alien fleet ignored them. "They think we fired the shot," Enoch said, his voice breaking. On Erebus. Kane's jaw tightened. Captain Miles said urgently, "If they fire, the hauler won't." "Last 30 seconds?" "I know," Kane replied. "Then we reveal ourselves now." Kane shook her head slowly. "Not yet." Miles stared at her. "You'd let them be destroyed?" Her eyes met his. I'd let them play their part. 4. Now, out in the void, the alien cruiser's forward guns glowed with charging energy. The crew of the hauler's Pride watched helplessly, knowing they couldn't outrun or outgun the attack, and aboard the Erebus, the bridge crew held their breath. Kane's voice was a whisper, "Not yet." The alien guns fired. Brilliant lances of energy slammed into the freighter's hull, making its shields flare weakly before shattering. The hauler's Pride lurched, its hull smoking, systems failing one by one. On Zorath's bridge, the alien admiral leaned forward. Again, the second volley hit harder. Explosions bloomed along the freighter's spine. Crew members floated into space, their bodies tumbling silently in the dark. "Captain," Miles said, voice tight with anger. "We have to—" Kane raised a hand. "They think they've found their culprit. Let them think that." Her voice had steel in it now, because when they find out they're wrong, the shock will hurt more. On the alien flagship, Zorath watched the human freighter drifting, crippled and smoking, and somewhere deep in his mind, shadow of doubt began to grow. If the freighter was the attacker, why did the railgun slug hit so cleanly? Why no muzzle? Flash, why no thermal signature? And why did it feel like someone was still watching him? In the dark, Erebus drifted silently. Her crew tense but ready. The first shot had been fired. No one knew it yet. But the war had already begun. Hauler's Pride drifted in silence. Its hull was blackened. Its lights were gone. And the bodies of its crew floated in the cold dark. The alien fleet closed in like a pack of predators circling a wounded animal. On the bridge of the Sovereign's Pride, Admiral Zorath leaned forward, eyes locked on the wreck. "Board it," he ordered. "Find proof. If they fired on our cruiser, I want the weapon logs." His voice was calm, too calm. That was how his officers knew he was angry. 3 alien boarding craft detached from their ships, gliding toward the wounded freighter. Their hull lights swept over twisted metal and broken panels. Aliens weren't afraid. The humans inside were unarmed, powerless, and trapped. On the Erebus, Kane watched it unfold. Her crew was restless. Captain Miles' voice was tight, almost desperate. "They're going to find nothing on that ship. When they do, they'll start hunting for the real attacker." "They'll hunt anyway," Kane replied. "Then we need to act." "Now," Miles pressed. "If we move in, we can pull survivors off the hauler before the boarding teams get inside." "If we move in," Kane said evenly, "we drop the stealth field." The words hung in the air like a blade. Dropping the stealth. Now would be like lighting a flare in the void. Every Dominion warship would see them instantly. The advantage they had, the reason Erebus existed, would vanish. And if the aliens destroyed Erebus now, humanity would lose the one weapon that could level the field. Kane walked slowly to the viewport, though it still showed nothing but distorted light from the cloaking field. She placed her hands behind her back. "Captain," another officer spoke up, "we have 47 life signs still aboard the hauler. Most are in engineering, trapped under collapsed bulkheads. We could get them out in minutes." Miles stepped closer to her. "We're really going to sit here and listen while they take our people?" Kane's jaw tightened. On the alien boarding craft, the soldiers were already cutting through the freighter's hull. Their plasma torches spat bright blue fire into the dark. Inside, the survivors huddled together, some bleeding, some barely conscious. The sound of the cutting beams was a death knell. On Erebus, silence was unbearable. Finally, Kane turned. "Helm, take us in. Stealth field stays on." We moved slow. The crew sprang into motion. The black ship glided toward the crippled freighter. It's invisible even as it crossed right in front of an alien frigate. Approaching the helm officer, whispered, "Docking arm ready." "Deploy on my mark," Kane said. The alien boarding teams breached the freighter's outer hull. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the wreck. They stepped into the dark corridors, weapons ready, scanning for any movement. They never saw the shadow move in behind them. The Erebus extended a docking arm long, black, almost insect-like, and clamped onto the freighter's aft section. Its magnetic locks hissed into place, and an invisible airlock seal formed between the two ships. "Seal complete," Miles reported. "Begin transfer," Kane ordered. From the survivor's point of view, the dark corridor ahead shimmered, and then, impossibly, a hatch appeared in thin air. It opened, revealing human faces in sleek black armor. "Move," the Erebus Marine shouted. "Stay quiet, stay low." Hands grabbed hands, dragging the wounded through the invisible opening. Bodies were lifted, passed along, vanishing into the ship that no alien could see. In another section of the freighter, the alien soldiers turned a corner and froze. The humans they had been tracking were gone. Scanners showed life signs, fading into nothing. On the Sovereign's Pride, Zorith's cum officer looked up in confusion. "Admiral, the boarding team's report. Anomalies." Zoroth's eyes narrowed. "What kind of anomalies?" "They say the humans vanished." The last survivor was pulled through just as one alien marine turned the corner and raised his weapon. His shot passed straight through the shimmer of the Erebus's docking arm and into empty space. Then, as a black ship detached. "Seal the arm," Kane ordered. "Full stealth power, 2 drives. Get us clear." The Erebus slid away from the wreck, silent and unseen. Behind them, the alien marines stormed through the freighter, finding nothing but twisted metal and dead ends. On Zoroth's bridge, the reports came in. No weapon logs, no attackers, no survivors. Zoroth didn't speak for a long moment. Then he leaned back in his throne, eyes cold. "Bring in the hunters," he said. On the Erebus, the crew's relief was short-lived. Miles turned to Kane. "Hunters," Kane nodded grimly. "Hunter-class pursuit ships. They're faster than anything we have, and they're designed to track what shouldn't be trackable." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had just pulled off an impossible rescue. But now, the most feared ships in the Dominion were on their way. Kane looked out at the black void ahead. Somewhere out there, the hunters were already burning toward them, and this time, hiding might not be enough. The Dominion hunters came. Without warning, no lights, no comes. No signals, just shadows moving through shadows. Faster than any normal ship could move. On the Erebus, alarms pulsed silently on every station. Stealth field kept them invisible, but not invulnerable. "Contact," the sensor officer whispered. "Multiple. Closing fast." "How many?" Kane asked. 3, maybe 4. They're spreading out, covering angles." Miles leaned over the console, scanning the readouts. "They're hunting by gravimetric disturbance," he said quietly. "We can't hide heat, not from them. They'll see the wake from our drive." Kane's voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Then we make the wake work for us." The crew didn't understand at first. But then Kane walked to the center display and pointed to a thin asteroid belt ahead. A scattered field of rock, dust, and drifting ice. Thick enough to confuse sensors, thin enough for a skilled pilot to weave through. "They'll follow our trail right into it," she said. "And then?" Miles asked. "Then we disappear." The Erebus slid toward the asteroid field, silent and invisible, leaving only the faintest distortion in space-time. Behind them, the hunters followed like wolves tracking scent in the snow. The hunters were sleek. Knife-shaped ships painted the black of deep space, with long, thin heat veins trailing behind them. They didn't need to see the Erebus there. Sensors felt the ripple of her passing, like ripples in still water. On board the lead hunter, Captain Vera sat in darkness, her voice barely above a whisper as she issued orders. "She's good. Slipping between our sweeps, but not good enough." Vera had hunted smugglers, pirates, even rogue Dominion captains. None had escaped her. She knew the human ship was here. She could feel it. The asteroid belt loomed ahead. Shards of rock tumbled. Silently, some no bigger than a hand. Others large enough to hide a battleship. "Entering the belt," the helm officer said. "Cut primary engines," Kane ordered. "Drift." The Erebus's drive went cold. Without thrust, she became just another piece of debris, coasting between jagged stone and frozen dust. The stealth field shimmered faintly, bending light and radiation away. The hunters followed, but slowed. Even for them, the belt was dangerous. One wrong move, one sudden burn of engines, and a hidden rock could tear a hole through the hull. The first hunter passed close, so close the Erebus crew could see the thin silver lines of its sensor arrays gliding past the viewport. "Hold, hold," Kane whispered. The hunter didn't fire, didn't even turn, simply drifted past, scanning. The second hunter wasn't so patient. Its engines flared bright, and it cut a path straight through the belt, sending fragments spinning. A large rock tumbled toward the Erebus, silent but deadly. Port thrusters. 2-second burn, Kane snapped. The black ship slid aside just in time. The rock passed by, scraping the edge of the stealth field and sending a brief ripple through. The hunter's sensors twitched. "Captain, they saw something," Miles said urgently. "Not enough," Kane replied. "We're still ghosts." But she knew they couldn't play this game forever. The hunters weren't just chasing, they were hurting her, tightening the noose, in the belt's center. A dense cluster of rocks spun slowly, like a frozen whirlpool. Kane studied it for a long second, and then smiled. "Helm, bring us into the cluster. Tuck us between those big ones." As they moved in, Kane turned to engineering. "Charge the graviton projector." Miles' eyes widened. "That's for planetary defense. Use it here. You'll exactly," Kane said. The Erebus slid between two massive boulders, each the size of a small moon. They're gravitational. Pull-warped space slightly, just enough for Kane's plan. The hunters were closing in. Two came from opposite sides. One from above. Kane waited until their blips were almost on top of them now, she said. The graviton projector roared to life. It created a sudden, sharp gravitational pulse between the two giant rocks. The effect was violent. The rocks lurched toward each other, colliding in slow-motion silence, sending a shockwave of debris in all directions. The hunters scattered. One was caught in the blast, its sleek hull punched through by a chunk of iron. It spun away, venting atmosphere. The other two pulled back, avoiding the worst of the debris. But they lost their fix on Erebus. "Drive full burn," Kane ordered. The stealth ship shot out of the collapsing cluster, using the chaos as cover. The hunters tried to follow, but the belt was now a storm of flying stone. On the lead hunter, Captain Vera stared at her flickering sensor display. The human ship was gone, again, but she didn't look angry. She looked intrigued. "Clever," she murmured. "Very clever. But you can only run so long." Back on Erebus, the crew allowed themselves a moment of relief. "We're clear," the helm officer reported. "Not for long," Kane said quietly. "They'll still be looking, and next time they'll be ready." She turned to Miles. "Prep the next phase. If the hunters want us, we'll give them something to chase." Out in the black, the surviving hunters regrouped. They had lost the human ship, but Vera knew the chase wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. Space was quiet. Too quiet. The Erebus floated in the shadow of a cold moon. No lights, no engine burn, just another dead object drifting in the dark. But inside, the crew moved like a hive preparing for war. Kane stood over the tactical table. A faint blue projection of the hunters' patrol patterns spun slowly in the air. "They're predictable now," she said. "Patterns are a weakness." Miles folded his arms. "Hunters don't have weaknesses. They've been hunting for centuries. And it's time they learned they're not the only predators out here," Kane replied. The plan was simple in words. It's impossible in execution. They would make the Erebus appear wounded, vulnerable, easy prey. They'd draw the hunters in, and then turn the trap. But the bait had to be perfect. Down in engineering, Chief Alvarez worked with quiet fury, stripping panels from the walls. "And rerouting half the ship's systems? We're gutting half our own stealth tech," she muttered. "Feels like breaking my own bones. It'll be worth it," Kane said from the doorway. "You better be right," Alvarez shot back. "'Cause if we mess this up, they'll cut us apart before we can even think about running." In the cargo bay, the crew stacked decoy emitters, small spheres no bigger than a helmet. each capable of throwing out a massive energy signature. It'd make the Erebus look like she was bleeding reactor fuel, and like she couldn't fight back. 3 hours later, they were ready. The Erebus drifted out from the moon's shadow, thrusters firing in uneven bursts, just enough to look damaged. Small debris trailed behind her, as if chunks of hull had been torn away. From a distance, she looked broken. The hunters took the bait, in the lead hunter's ship. Captain Vera leaned forward in her chair, watching the faint signal on her display. There, she said softly, "Found you." Her crew leaned in, too, excitement in their eyes. "She's hurt, running cold. No escort." Vera's lips curved into a thin smile. "Then we finish this." 2 hunters broke formation and swept in from opposite flanks. The third took position behind, ready to cut off escape. Inside Erebus, Kane waited, her eyes fixed on the tactical map. The red dots were closing fast. "Hold," she said. "They're almost in firing range," Miles warned. "Hold," Kane repeated. The first hunter loomed large on the forward display. Its knife-shaped hull seemed to slice through the darkness itself. "Lock weapons," Kane ordered. "Weapons locked," said Alvarez. "Not yet." Kane's voice was steady, but her knuckles were white. The hunters closed the final gap. Then, Kane said, "Now." The decoy emitters launched from the Erebus, scattering into space like seeds caught in the wind. Each one burst to life, glowing hot with false reactor signatures. The hunters' sensors went wild. Suddenly there were 5 human ships in their field of view, all damaged, all vulnerable. The hunters split, chasing different targets. That was the mistake Kane had been waiting for. "Full burn," she snapped. The Erebus roared to life, stealth field dropping for maximum power. She swung around hard, heading straight for the lead hunter. The alien captain barely had time to react before the Erebus fired, not torpedoes, but a pulse wave from the graviton projector. It hit the hunter broadside, shoving it off course, and straight into the path of a drifting asteroid. The collision wasn't explosive, but it was fatal. The hunter's hull crumpled, venting air and flame into the void. The other 2 hunters scrambled to regroup, but they were too far apart now. The Erebus slid between them, firing precision strikes that shredded weapons arrays. And sensor dishes. She didn't destroy them, she blinded them. "Targets disabled," Alvarez reported. Kane nodded. "Leave them. Let them crawl home with the story." Out in the black, the surviving hunters drifted, powerless. Inside her crippled ship, Captain Vera sat in silence, listening to the groans of her damaged hull. She wasn't angry. She was impressed. "The humans fight like ghosts," she whispered, "and ghosts are hard to kill." The Erebus disappeared into the dark once more. But Kane knew the war had just changed. Dominion would not take this loss quietly. The stars looked wrong. Kane didn't notice it at first. Space was always strange when you stared too long. But now, standing alone on the bridge of the Erebus, she could feel it. Something out there was watching. The hunters had gone quiet, too quiet. For 3 days, the Dominion patrol routes vanished from their scans. No chatter on open channels. No strange pings on the sensors, just silence. At first, the crew celebrated. They thought they'd scared the hunters enough to make them retreat. But Kane knew better. Predators didn't just give up. They changed the hunt. On the 4th day, Alvarez found it. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, voice tight. The display lit up, not with a ship, but with a shadow. It blotted out the stars as it moved, slow and deliberate. No running lights, no transmissions, no transponder. It was big. Far bigger than anything the hunters had sent before. Miles leaned in. "How is it that close without us seeing it until now?" Alvarez didn't look up, because it wasn't there before. It just appeared. Kane studied the image. Shadow moved like it had weight, like it was dragging the darkness with it. It wasn't shaped like any warship she'd seen. No angles, no obvious engines. Just a vast curve, as if part of a planet had broken off and learned how to stalk prey. Then, a sound. Not a voice, not a transmission. Just a low vibration, deep in the Erebus's hull. It wasn't coming from the ship. It was coming from outside. Every hair on Kane's arms rose. "Shut down everything," she ordered. The crew obeyed instantly, the ship falling into dead silence. They waited. The shadow drifted closer. No weapons visible, no movement but that. Slow, gliding approach. Then it stopped. For a moment, Kane thought it had gone. Then, a light appeared. Single line of white, stretching across the thing's surface. Like an eye-opening. It looked at them. Kane didn't know how she knew that. But she felt it. That light wasn't scanning for them. It wasn't searching. It already knew where they were. Her chest tightened. The Erebus's stealth meant nothing. The light blinked out in the shadow. Simply drifted away. Alvarez whispered what was. That no one answered? Hours later, the Dominion finally broke their silence. A single transmission came through, repeating on every frequency, in every known language. Leave the outer systems. The Watcher has been awakened. Your war ends here. Kane stood at the front of the bridge, the words still echoing in her head. The hunters had been dangerous. But this was different. The hunters chased prey. The Watcher guarded something, and Kane had the sinking feeling that whatever it was guarding was something humanity was never meant to find, out beyond the cold stars. The shadow kept moving, slow, patient, like it had all the time in the universe. No one slept. The Erebus moved through the black like a ghost. Every system running low, every crew member whispering as if sound itself might draw the shadow back. But Kane knew it was already here. They didn't pick it up on sensors. They felt it first, the weight. Like something pressing down on the ship, pressing down on their hearts. Alvarez's voice was a trembling thread. "Captain, look." Outside, the shadow loomed again, larger now, impossibly large, filling the viewport until it was nothing but darkness. No stars, no space, only it then. A voice not through the coms, it's not through the speakers. Inside their minds, "Why do you build what you cannot control?" The crew froze. "Why do you hide weapons in the dark, when you cannot bear the dark itself?" Kane forced herself to speak. "We build to survive. We hide because others threaten us." Then the voice came again, older now, heavier. "Survival is not your right. It is earned." The darkness shifted, and the eye appeared once more, but this time it didn't just watch. It opened. Light poured in, not the white glare of a scanner, but golden, warm. In that light, Kane saw things she couldn't explain. Worlds breaking apart under invisible hands. Civilizations erased without war. Ships, human ships, shattered before they'd even fired. The Watcher's voice filled her again. "You are not the first. You will not be the last. But you are." Loud, and I am the silence. And then it was gone. No fading away this time, just gone. One blink, and the stars returned. The Dominion fleet contacted them minutes later. No mockery, no threats, just a simple message. The Watcher is awake. We will not enter these systems again. Neither should you. Kane stood alone at the viewport, watching the empty void. Humanity had enemies. But somewhere out there was something. Worse, not because it hated them, but because it didn't care, and she knew. If the Watcher ever came again, there would be no warning. She turned to the crew, set course for home. The engines lit softly. The Erebus slipped into the eth. Darkness, somewhere far behind them, a shadow moved. Slow, patient, waiting, the end.